Welcome to all our viewers on the Horror Radio channel to a new true Egyptian story. In downtown Cairo, at the intersection of Sharif Street and Qasr El Nil Street, lies the most famous building in the history of Egypt, which is the Immobilia Building. The Immobilia Building was built in 1938 and has 370 apartments and an area of 5,444 square meters. The building consists of two towers. The Tower A consisting of 11 floors and the Tower B of 13 floors, with 27 elevators. The rent of the apartment at the beginning of construction of the building ranged from £6 to £12, depending on the area of the apartment, and this amount was very expensive at that time. For this reason, most of the residents of this building were artists, wealthy people, and great politicians. Among the artists who lived in this building were the Egyptian artist Naguib al-Rayani, the Egyptian artist Mahmoud el-Meligi, the Egyptian artist Magda, the Egyptian artist Camelia, the Egyptian artist Camelia, the Egyptian artist Laila Mourad, and her husband, the artist Anwar Wagdi. Today we will talk about the story of the Egyptian artist Laila Mourad's apartment, which is haunted by ghosts. Egyptian artist Laila Mourad lived on the 11th floor of the Immobilia Building and died on November 21, 1995. Until now, the furniture belonging to the artist Laila Mourad's apartment is still present inside her apartment in its condition as if she was still alive. The bed on which she died, the mirrors on which she used to put her makeup, and the table on which she used to eat. The one who inherited the apartment after her was her son, Zaki Fatin Abdul Wahab. He did not change anything in the apartment and left everything in its proper place for his mother's love. The apartment remained closed after the death of the Egyptian artist Laila Mourad. Director Khaled Hajar, a friend of the heir Zaki Fatin, came. This director was very fond of the Immobilia Building, and his life's dream was to live in the apartment of the artist, Laila Mourad, in particular. He asked her son, Zaki Fatin, to buy her Mothatra's apartment at any price he wanted, but Zaki refused and said that he could not sell it to him because it was all a memory of her mother, but because you are my close friend, it is possible for me to rent it to you. Director Khaled Hajar was very happy and that he was finally going to the apartment of the artist Laila Mourad. After that, Zaki Fatin accompanied a friend of director Khaled Hajar and they went to the apartment. When they entered the apartment, they heard the voice of a woman coming from the kitchen, greeting him and saying welcome. He looked around to try to find the source of the sound, but he did not find anyone else in front of him other than Zaki Fatin. But director Khaled Hajar felt that the voice he heard was the voice of the artist Laila Mourad, so he said in his mind that it could be an illusion because he was very attached to the apartment and loved Laila Mourad and was affected by her furniture, until he was still in his condition inside the apartment as if she was still alive. After the director obtained the key to the apartment and settled in on his first day there, while he was sitting at the desk writing the script for a movie, all the lights in the apartment were turned off, and his cup of coffee was next to him, lighting the side of the lamp. And he continued to write for a number of hours, and he was exhausted, and he continued writing until it was 2 midnight. Director Khaled Alabama Hajar felt at that time an illusion like a ghost passing in front of him, but he did not care about this matter and thought in his mind that this was due to the fatigue he had suffered from working for long periods. He continued writing and did not pay any attention to the matter, and after several minutes this ghost passed again. Another time passed in front of him, and at that time he said in his mind that he should stop writing, and he sat on the chair, looking around expectantly. After several more minutes, this ghost passed in front of him a third time. The ghost was in the form of a woman wearing a white dress and short black hair, walking calmly and peacefully inside the apartment. Khaled Alabama Hajar says that the ghost of this woman did not bother me or make me afraid. Khaled Alabama Hajar said, at this moment he began to collect his papers and put them in the desk drawer, and told himself that he had had enough of work today. And said to himself, "I exhausted myself from writing so much, I hallucinated, and I started seeing abnormal things." He actually went into the bedroom and sleep. Days passed while he was in the apartment, but when he was sitting in the apartment he always felt that he was not alone in the apartment, and that there was someone living with him, but he did not see anything in front of him. One of the strange stories that Khalid Alabama Ratched tells is that one day before he came down from the apartment to work, he opened all the apartment's windows and raised the curtains so that clean, natural air could enter the apartment. But when he returned again to the apartment, he found something strange. He found that all the windows were closed and the curtains were covering the windows. He said to himself that it was possible that I had forgotten to do this before I left the apartment, but this had happened to him more than once. And Khalid Alabama Ratched began to see many ghosts and ghosts every day inside the apartment, not only the ghost of the woman that he was seeing at the beginning, but there were other ghosts, and he felt it when he entered the kitchen. And he also felt that the source of these ghosts was from the old picture found in the apartment and the old furniture in the apartment. But director Khalid Alabama Ratched said to himself that it was possible that the reason was me personally, and that it was possible that I had become psychologically ill. One day, one of Khalid al-Hajjar's friends went to stay with him in the apartment while they were sitting together at night. Khalid's friend asked permission to enter the bathroom, so Khalid described to him the location of the bathroom. When his friend went to the bathroom, he stopped in shock and said that he saw the ghost of a woman wearing Indian clothes, looking at him and smiling. At the moment, his friend quickly returned to Khalid, and Khalid asked him, wondering why you came back so quickly. So he told his friend what he saw when he approached the bathroom. At that time, Khalid felt extremely embarrassed and asked him for permission to leave the apartment. On that day, Khalid became certain that all the ghosts he was seeing were true and that he was not mentally ill as he thought. This matter was repeated several times in different situations with more than one of Khalid's friends, and Khalid became certain that the apartment was indeed inhabited by ghosts. One day, Khalid decided to search the entire apartment to find out what caused the presence of all these ghosts in the apartment. He continued searching everywhere in the apartment, but with time he remembered that there was a place he had not searched, which was the storage room above the apartment's kitchen door, and Khalid tried. He opened it, but every time he tried to open it he failed, and he felt that there was something strange preventing him from opening it. One day, Khalid asked one of his friends to come to his apartment to help him open the storage room above the kitchen door. He brought a ladder and went up to the storage room, but when he reached the door, he found that the door was closed with a tightly locked lock. He tried to break the lock, but he was surprised that the ladder he was standing on, and there was someone, pulled the ladder from under his feet forcefully, and he fell to the ground. He suffered bruises and almost broke his back. After this incident, Khalid was afraid to try again and decided to forget the matter and called the owner of the apartment, Zaki Faiteen Abdul Wahab, and told him what had happened in the apartment from the beginning of his rental of the apartment until now. He described to him the appearance of the ghost of the woman he saw the first day he was in the apartment, who was wearing a white dress and had short black hair. Then Zaki Faiteen told Khalid's friend that this description was what his mother, the artist Laila Mourad, looked like on the day of her death. Zaki told his friend Khalid that he had also seen ghosts in the apartment before he rented it to him, and that after his mother's death, he was staying in the apartment for a while, and he was seeing all the ghosts that were mentioned, especially the ghost of the woman who resembled his mother on the day of her death, and she was walking quietly and peacefully without causing me any problems. But by time I became psychologically tired, closed the apartment, and looked for another apartment to settle in. After director Khalid Alabama Ratched heard from Zaki Faiteen, Khalid decided to seek the help of a spiritual man, and after this spiritual man inspected the apartment, he told Khalid about a surprise. He explained to him that there are no ghosts in the apartment, but that what you see in the apartment is a type of energy, and he advised him to try to communicate with the energy and to try to talk to them, and that this type of energy is a peaceful and harmless type. Khalid began to experience what the spiritual man said. One day when he was sleeping, he heard several voices around him that woke him up from sleep, and he felt that someone was putting a hand on his shoulder. Then Carl said to them, while trying to hide his fear inside him, saying, "Can you leave me to sleep, please?" Then all the voices around him fell silent, and he no longer had the hand on his shoulder and continued his sleep normally. Another time, Carl was inside the elevator, and when he reached the 5th floor, it stopped, and when Carl had tried to press the button on the control panel to make the elevator moved to the 4th floor, but then it went up again to the 5th floor. And the elevator kept going up and down between the 5th floor and the 4th several times, and then Carl said in a loud voice, "Can you let me come down with your permission?" Then the elevator moved directly and continued its descent normally until it reached the ground floor. Khalid says that with time he got used to coexisting with the ghosts he sees and got used to not being afraid of them, and that they are harmless. One day something happened to the director, Khalid al-Ajjar, after which he decided to leave the apartment. He said that when he was sleeping one day, he heard the doors of the bedroom closet opening and closing quickly and forcefully. Then Khalid got up, put on his clothes, and hurried to leave the building, and then they met with the building's janitor, and when the janitor asked him why he left like this, Carl told him that he could no longer continue in the apartment any longer. He told the building's janitor about what had happened, and then the janitor advised him to leave the apartment immediately. The building's janitor told him that most of the residents knew that the apartment of the Egyptian artist, Laila Mourad, was haunted by ghosts, and that many times the neighbors would hear the sounds of parties, songs, and the sounds of piano playing coming from the apartment. And the building's janitor knew very well that there was no one in the apartment. After what Carl heard from the building's doorman, Carl decided to leave the apartment permanently, even though he had hoped to live in the apartment of the artist Laila Mourad. But he could no longer bear what he saw and left the key to his friend Zaki Fatin Abdul Wahab. The apartment remained closed until Zaki Fatin sold the apartment and everything in it to a woman named Mana, who lived outside Egypt, and bought it upon her return to Egypt. After a while, Mana appeared in a press interview and confirmed that the apartment was haunted by ghosts, and that when she bought it, she did not know that the apartment was haunted by ghosts. But director Khalid was curious about the architecture of the Ambulia and decided to research the history of the architecture and any other events that happened in this building other than the events in the apartment of the Egyptian artist Laila Mourad. Indeed, director Khalid discovered that a murder had occurred in the building in 1995, the same year in which the Egyptian artist Laila Mourad died. However, the mortal Laila Mourad died naturally, but what director Khalid found was that there was a person living on the 5th floor who asked the broker who helped him obtain the apartment to bring him a servant to cook for him and clean the apartment, and the broker actually did this and brought him a servant. But one day the servant disagreed with the resident who owned the apartment, and a quarrel broke out between them, which ended in the end with the resident killing the servant. The resident called the broker, and when the broker came to the apartment, the resident who owned the apartment killed the broker as well. The crime occurred on the 5th floor, and after that all the residents complained that the elevator was always breaking down on the 5th floor and then continuing to go down to the ground floor without their intervention. One of the strange events associated with the Immobilia building is the death of the Egyptian singer, composer and actor Mohamed Fawzi when he was afflicted with a rare disease that doctors were unable to treat. His weight reached 36 kilos before his death and he died. And also the death of the Egyptian artist Camellia, who was a resident of this building. She died in a plane accident and her body was completely burned, and they were unable to recognize her features and she was charred. And also the death of the Egyptian artist, Asmahan, who was also a resident of this building and died in a car accident when the car caught fire and the car went down the Nile. Because of all these events, the Immobilia building became the second largest and most terrifying building in Egypt after the Rushdie building in Alexandria. Here the story of Immobilia architecture ends. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and comment on the video.